Great. It says it's bad, but it's good.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah. Welcome. My name is Ravi Mikkelsen. I'm one of the organizers for CleanWeb-SF and the founder of CleanWeb. So it's awesome. I think more people showed up than actually signed up to come to this meetup. So raise your hands if you're a member of CleanWeb-SF. Several of you are. Some of you are not yet. So if you aren't, and if you use meetup.com, please go to meetup.com/CleanWeb-SF and join our meetup group so that you'll get future announcements. So next month we're covering solar software innovation as part of the Intersolar Conference, July 10th, 11th, and 12th. As well as we're partnering with Grid Alternatives and PG&E to support and their large jobs fair. So if you are looking for a job, it's a great place to go. It's 1 to 5 p.m. on July 11th at PG&E's Pacific Energy Center. So CleanWeb-SF is a meetup that showcases new sustainability technologies, primarily web-enabled or IoT, and we cover everything from water to carbon counting to energy, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and we now live stream and record the events starting in January. So if you want to go back, see the past few months, they're up online. And and the mission of the CleanWeb in general is to close the funding gap for early stage clean tech and sustainability companies. What we found is that there isn't a shortage of capital, but rather a network disconnect between the innovators and the most appropriate source of capital. So we're connecting with foundations, family offices, government agencies, competitions, impact investors, your traditional VC and corporate VCs and angels to match each startup, each innovation with the most appropriate source of capital. So if it's going to take you 15 to 20 years to turn your CO2 capture device and make ethanol or plastic, we'll get you government and foundation grants. If you're building a web app, you may just need 25, 50K from an impact or angel investor to get off the ground. So without further ado, we'll get started. Tonight we're covering demand response and solar load balancing. So we're going to start off with John Powers. He's the founder and CEO of Extensible Energy, and you can find out a whole lot more about it. He has been in the energy game for a very long time, and I'll let him share as much as he wants to. So without further ado, John Powers. Wait, just hold up for a moment. His last name is Powers, all right? I think that's a perfect name to be in this industry. So welcome, Mr. Powers.
First other announcement is this is not church. Everybody can come forward. There's plenty of room up here. I would really rather make this a conversation than a presentation. We're going to talk about some of the work we've been doing at Extensible for the last couple of years now, but really we're interested in hearing as much from you as telling you what we're about. So Extensible Energy does consulting and technology tools for the new energy economy. The one we're going to talk about tonight is solar load balancing software. We'll get into what that means, I suppose, now. I front load this with, I said that. So I said we were doing consulting for utilities, but it's really utilities and their customers and third parties who are participating in the big change now from a dirty energy grid to a clean energy grid, which is why I'm happy to be here at Clean Web. What we all want is to have high penetration renewables and an economic and stable grid. That is tricky based on the technology we've invested in for the last 100 years. So there are a lot of things, a lot of mind shifts that have to take place in the energy industry. And the one I talk about the most is this notion that, and again, I'm nice and old, so I remember when all we had to do was follow load. So everything was about the load is the load, you build the mix of power plants that can provide base load and then load following for that time when load has interesting shapes. Gas turbines, hydroelectric systems, things that could respond quickly had a lot of value because you could follow the load more closely. Well, now we have a lot of non-dispatchable supply. And what we need is load that can follow supply, just as we used to have supply that has to follow load. So we have to teach energy-using devices to help balance the grid, instead of relying exclusively on burning dinosaurs and spinning metal to balance the grid. Now, burning dinosaurs and spinning metal got us 100 years, so I understand that that worked. But if we're going to convert to wind, solar, and other renewable sources that are intermittent, we have to have load that follows along with that. Now, fortunately, this is a good time to be doing that. In 1950s or 60s, when a lot of the power grid was built, networking and sensors were prohibitively expensive, computing power was non-existent. Now we have abundant computing power, cheap networking, getting to have more and more responsive sensors, so you can actually, with IoT and artificial intelligence, we're fully buzzword compliant at Extensible Energy. With those tools that are now becoming commercial, you can actually build systems that will flex the loads of residential, commercial, and industrial buildings to match the output of renewables. And that's one piece of what we're working on. Behind the meter, making presenting a load profile to the grid that's much easier for the remaining resources to serve. We'll get into how we do that in a second. Oh yeah, and thank you, Department of Energy, for funding the research that I'm talking about. This is Small Business Innovation, SBIR grant that we got. Phase 1 was 2 years ago. Phase 2 is this year and into next. Okay. Do we know SBIR? Anybody? Small Business Innovation Research. If you're an entrepreneur, it is your best friend in the world. Non-dilutive financing. All you got to do is come up with an idea that matches what the DOE wants to fund. That's the tricky bit. So what's wrong with this picture? So for the last decade, residential solar's done really well. Utility scale solar's done really well. Behind the meter commercial solar has always been next year's market. Someday someone will figure this out. We'll keep saying it. So right now, the commercial market is, or the non-residential, which includes commercial and industrial, behind the meter solar, is half the size of the residential market, which is odd because non-residential energy users use twice as much electricity as residential. So the aggregate amount of all the energy used in commercial and industrial facilities is enormous. And an infinitesimal fraction of that is being served by solar today. Even if we just caught up with residential, we could quadruple the size of the commercial solar market by having a more cost-effective way to do solar in that sector. So why is this happening? What's the problem? So on my bill at home, and on most of yours, you're charged for kilowatt hours and kilowatt hours alone. That is an energy charge, and this building is also charged an energy charge. But this building gets a third to a half of its electricity bill from PG&E as a demand charge, which is based on the highest usage 15-minute interval of the entire month. So a big spike in power usage costs this building a lot of money. What happens when you put solar behind the meter? So you have net metering, you have a load profile that reflects when the sun is out, a negative number goes down like so. And during the middle of the day, one cloud can ruin your whole month. If you get a dropout in the power produced by your solar output, you could still be faced with as big a demand charge as you ever were, even though you're saving on the energy charge. Well, this makes it very hard for a solar installer to make a commercial deal pencil out, because he's sort of working with one hand behind his back. A commercial installer has to make the systems on commercial buildings pay off with only savings on the energy charge. That's the same problem that all the battery guys in the free world are now chasing. Any battery guys here tonight? Anybody believe in batteries? Oh, now, there we go. So I'm a battery guy too. I love batteries. I think they're great. Batteries don't have the capacity to handle every load profile for a commercial building that's out there. And it can be much more cost effective to flex the loads of the building as the variation, along with the variation in output from the solar. That's using the thermal mass of the building as a battery, basically. No one cares when the compressors in the building are running. They only care that they're nice and comfortable. Let me see if my partner Ari made this slide. I'm going to see if the thing that never works. No. So he's got this cool animation that shows the load profiles dancing across the screen and varying as the sun goes by. But basically the point we're making here is that there are way more flexible loads in a commercial building than most people realize. We treat load as though it were inflexible because we assume that when we flip a switch, power is being used, which it is. But when all the systems in the building automatically flip switches, no one flipped the switch just now to turn on the ventilation in this room. An automated system made a fully idiotic decision about when to turn everything on, not paying attention to grid conditions, not paying attention to solar output, not paying attention to anything except time of day and whether the thermostat told it to do something. Well, that's living in the moment. Buildings like to live in the moment. We're building software that plans for the moment and then learns from the past and plans for the future in a building. I said this was a DOE project, so I have to put up one screen that describes what the project is, and I'll let you guys read that if you want, but really, the idea is what I just said. Buildings are more flexible than we realize, and if we can tap into that flexibility, we can make solar much more cost effective throughout the commercial sector. So, we're building components to this. Solar forecasting, so we can see when clouds are coming. Building forecasting, so we know what the load's going to be in the next minute or hour, and intelligent control algorithms that do that flexing that I talked about. This is a big market. I mentioned before that the commercial market is much, much bigger than the residential market, but really if we only look at medium size, small to medium commercial buildings, and we only look at demand charge savings, and we only look at a reasonable split of the demand charge savings that we could capture, it's billions of dollars in the US alone. So we're building some stuff. You can look at it. I don't know how many of you are developers. We can talk all you want about the pieces that we're building, but basically they are solar forecasting, building controls, load forecasting, something that talks to all the different things in the building. Okay? Yes, sir?
what part of these things have existed before, and what are you making?
Yeah. So in the buildings, all the blue stuff already exists. So all the blue stuff at the bottom, there's a meter, there's a building energy management system, there are sensors, HVAC systems, lighting, potentially batteries, potentially electric vehicles, and in the buildings we're interested in, photovoltaic systems that include inverters and probably monitoring equipment to show what the output of that PV system is. So all those things exist, and they're in buildings, and they're absolutely free because someone else bought them for you. There's nothing cheaper than storage someone else pays for. So the things we're building are the green things, and to the extent we have to, the yellow. So the yellow layer is many of the more progressive and intelligent building energy management systems folks have built their own APIs that we can address. If not, we will have to build our own. Okay? So this is what I do all day, so I had to put one of these up there. So we look and see how the building behaves under a normal circumstance when it's being controlled by the current living in the moment building system, and how it behaves when it's using our solar load balancing system that includes forecasting and advanced control algorithms. Really, the result looks like something like this. So on a normal day with a nice bit of sun except for 1 hour in the middle of the day, you would get something that looks like the blue line as a load profile for a commercial building. And if we can make that blue line turn into the green line, which we can with the control algorithms we just talked about, we can save the whole distance between those two in terms of billing demand for the customer. That turns out to be a lot. Over the course of a month, that's more than 20% of the demand charge and more than 10% of the total bill saved just by over and above what solar is already saving. It's a 20% improvement over solar alone. And there's some results. In a real building, you see something like this. This is a building with solar, net metered, and on a normally cloudy day in the Bay Area. So there's clouds coming and going all day. There's loads turning on and off all day. And if you just draw a line at 10% of the above, 10% below the peak, you can see all you have to reschedule is this one tiny bit of load to make a 10% savings. And for a 20% savings, all you have to reschedule is the stuff that's above that 20% line. And in every building we've come across so far, we're pretty confident that we can reschedule more than 20% and save the building more than 20% on their demand. So I really want to just stop and take questions, but really, if you have a building that you want us to take a look at, if you work for the Department of Energy and want to talk about research priorities, if you work for the utility DR, DER, storage, or grid services group, or if you want to work on this problem, come see me after. So I'm just going to stop and take questions because I'm sure there's a wide diversity of audience here. So yeah, go. You're waving. Oh, you're waving. You can sit next to you. You. Who are you?
All right.
Yeah.
You talked about the thermal using the thermal mass of the building as a battery. Can you go into that more on how you calculate that and stuff?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of ASHRAE calculations that say that all heating, ventilation, and cooling people know that say how much energy needs to be removed from a building to lower the interior temperature by 1 degree. Okay, in different, with different external temperatures. So we just have a whole bunch of rules that say we need to use this much power to take this much energy out of the building because we forecast we will need that much energy. We're going to lose that much energy from the dropout in solar I showed you a minute ago. So that's a certain amount of energy that's not being generated by the solar, that divot in the solar generation. So we know how much that is, and we know how much it's going to be because we're forecasting that thing coming in an hour or more ahead of time. We can pre-cool in the hour previous to that and keep the load flat. So there's other loads in this particular building that we can control as well. So that's why you don't see a free cooling pump. But you can have car chargers, a stationary battery, even some electric lighting that you can designate as controllable. You can control all kinds of stuff in the building.
The buildings you've looked at, how much do their, like, by category, like the power consumption match, like the statistics, like HVAC and lighting? Do they match, or is it?
Yeah, so we don't know. We don't spend our time going through, we don't sub-meter a building, okay? You would need to actually measure all the lights in a building to know how much lighting is used by the building. So we do the calculations and say, given what we can see about which way the building faces and how thick the walls are, about how much of it would turn out to be heating, ventilation, and cooling. But the rest is other as far as we're concerned. So we know what the instantaneous draw of a battery or the instantaneous draw of an electric vehicle is. Those are pretty easy. They print it right on the label. But the HVAC is the tricky bit. We do modeling for that. Yeah.
So your range of buildings, like how modern are their, like the wrap? Like, are they older buildings or newer buildings?
So we have a mix. We have looked at buildings that are as old as what, 90 something years, and as new as the last 10. And you know, certainly the tighter the envelope, the easier it is to regulate the HVAC. But a lot of the older buildings are actually more massive, so the easier it is to just postpone the HVAC bit. Yeah.
For your modeling, were you given a corpus of data, or did you just go into a building and say, okay, here, let's start studying?
So we had. We started with ASHRAE prototypes of buildings. So there's some basic ones that people in the building modeling business, I'm not that guy, prototype all the time. And then we went with sort of deltas off of that for the buildings we were working on. So we didn't do super detailed. Again, we have no interest in building the most detailed energy models in the world. We want to know, what are we going to get sort of over the next few minutes, maybe the next couple hours. So you would not want to use our models to predict an 87, 60-hour energy usage index for HVAC in a building. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't do it. But we can tell quite well, and we can machine learn reasonably well, how much power it takes to move the temperature a degree in the space that we're interested in. That's something you can learn by watching with a very short amount of data, a matter of weeks. You don't need a big corpus of data. Right? Long answer, short answer, long babbling. You don't need a long period at all.
Okay.
Weeks. Yeah.
It seems like you guys may encounter the standard energy efficiency financing model or financing problem where customers may want guaranteed savings or shared savings. How do you guys think about that?
Yeah. So we're blissfully ignorant of our own business model at this point in time. We have some DOE money to go from our proof of concept model to a prototype that's being field tested now in buildings, and that's it. So I've worked in energy for the last years and have seen the ESCO models come and go, and the guaranteed savings models come and go, and all the other sort of measurement and verification stuff for demand response and other things that are all related to this, but not the same. And the trick is, to me, whether the solar installation looks better with or without this technology. If we have case studies that show real world demand savings, I don't care if it's guaranteed. I care, will the customer pay? I'm going to pay $1 million for the solar, or I'm going to pay $1 million and something for solar plus extensible energies thing. That's all I care about, right? So if the customer wants to know what his load would have been without the system, we'll make up a report, okay? We can come up with it. But putting that as sort of an addendum to the solar, this becomes part of the noise in terms of the expense of a very significant commercial solar system. It's going to be a small expense with savings that are reasonably bigger than you would have gotten with solar alone. So, yeah.
How do the human occupants of the building feel the effects of the shifting level?
So they feel it as an improvement because most buildings in the small to medium commercial building world are a catastrophe. So most buildings that run an energy management system don't manage anything, let alone energy. And most people are playing with the thermostats manually. Most thermostats then get put inside locked plastic boxes to prevent you from playing with the thermostats. So I went up to LBL and I gave a much longer, more technical version of this presentation. And someone asked the question, well, you think you can get 20% in your models. What do you think you can get in the real world? And I said 40. because when you look at the real data from real buildings, it's like, oh my God, what did they do? So I put up very polite examples here, but there are, if you look at a real load profile of a real commercial office building, you can see things you can fix. So the people will experience it as greater comfort and greater convenience, both, for sure. Yeah.
So you've been in the space for quite a long time.
What do you say?
Why has energy efficiency, if you can just walk into a building and save it 20%, right? Even without this technology, why has that for decades and decades and decades still persisted as? Is it just because nobody cares, or what's the deal? Why is this still going on?
So let's take a look at my numbers. I had numbers a minute ago. I had numbers a minute ago, and they're gone. So
I think they're after you.
Yeah, they're after all that. Yeah, that one or that one, either one. So, oh my God, we can save 10 or 20%, no problem. That's what, $1,700 a month. Wow. So, who are you going to pay? $1,700 a month to run around your building, fixing your energy problems. What intern is cheap enough? What energy manager's skills are low enough that it's worth filling buildings with humans to do this? It's just impossible. It can't be done. So you have to automate, and you have to automate more smartly than we have. Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Delta, Train, Carrier, 50 more energy management systems in buildings are designed for occupant comfort and convenience and not breaking. That's their whole mandate. They're not designed for energy efficiency. They're not designed for demand charge management, for God's sakes. They've never even heard of it. And to the extent they work on energy efficiency, by which they mean using less energy, they're designed to let you manage your schedule quite accurately so that stuff shuts off when you're not there. That's okay. But all the intraday variation in load is of no interest to a building that lives in the moment. The building forgets a tenth of a second after it turns on the compressor what the energy usage was before it turned on the compressor. Every building. I'll stand by that. Come on. Any building energy managers out there? So it's not that they couldn't. It's that that's not where their minds are. And the forecasting and backward learning world is really just coming around now. I don't believe we'll be the only people to do this. I just believe it's got a 0% penetration right now. Yes?
Have you found that the case study customers that you've looked at, are they digitized to the extent that you can use APIs and control their management systems, or are these in quite a lot of analog buildings that require build out on those?
So far, we are still in the learning and mucking about phase. So in the ones we've gone into, we have been going directly to BACnet, doing the control directly over BACnet, which is not terrible, but it's ask me in 3 or 4 months. But really, lots of these folks have newer systems. When you say something like Johnson Controls, that's not one thing. They shipped stuff 40 years ago that's still running in buildings, and they shipped stuff yesterday that's running in a building. The stuff yesterday has great APIs and public access, and well, I mean, it's super challenging to get the security and all the rest of it right, but it's not utterly closed up, right? The stuff from 40 years ago is, it's all analog wiring and the rest of it. So we go straight onto BACnet, put a little gateway of our own on there, works fine.
As a battery guy, what's your opinion on the future of the lithium-ion battery?
So, bright, lithium-ion battery. The question was, well, as a battery guy, what's my outlook on the future of the lithium-ion battery? I think it's very bright. I think that in this market, it's got a ways to go. I think that there are cheaper alternatives than, let's take a battery coming off an assembly line today. Where is its highest valued use? Is it really in energy arbitrage in the back room of an office building, or is it on a $90,000 Model S? I think most batteries, for a while, we have a backlog of demand in transportation where the use case is vastly more valuable. I'm a simple country economist, but the output's going to go where it's most valuable for a while. So the people who are forecasting this sort of crashing price based on increased supply aren't looking at the increasing demand, right? There's a lot of demand out there for anybody who can figure out how to build a good electric car. And, I just bought a Bolt, can't Bolt, great. It was between a Bolt and a Model 3, and I told everybody I wanted a car, not a picture of a car. I have to wait too long for that. I get a Model 3 when they figure out how to make it. Yeah.
Question about your software. I apologize, maybe you explained what I missed it. Is your software, how many parameters your software is considering? I understand you're considering temperature and sun. Are you considering wind outside, building location, building size, what it built from, how quick temperature will change? Is there any artificial intelligence which is learning about the building? And another part of the question, is your software standard or customizable for each customer?
Right. So the question is, when I just waved my hands and said almost nothing about my software, what's in there? Is that right? So in particular, in the modeling, how many parameters are we using for what? Do we consider more than just temperature and solar forecast? And the answer is we're still working on it. The proof of concept model we did use quite a few parameters about the building. It had to know about the building size, it had to know the number of floors and the kind of, thickness of the walls and all that sort of stuff. So it needed some building parameters. We haven't had to use wind or other weather factors. We expect we will have to use humidity if we move outside of California, but in California we've gotten by with just temperature. And so we tend to have more detailed information about the inside of the building, which is temperature by zone. So there's different zones in the building, which can be different temperatures based on different things going on in each zone of the building. And there's So beyond that, most of it is around what you just said, temperature and solar insolation. And we try to forecast out a 6-hour window, right? We try and look ahead 6 hours and revise the model once a minute. So we look out for 6 hours, plan what we're going to do. A minute goes by, we do it again. So that's the sort of pattern that we have. So that when we see things that are going to happen, we know how badly it's going to affect the load profile of the building. The only thing we're aiming at is lower demand at the peak. So that's actually a challenging optimization, but that's the one we work on. Yeah.
All your benefit charts are obviously at the micro level. Have you projected this at scale to the macro level such that a utility might say, yeah, you can help us build fewer plants?
Yeah, so we have been targeting the behind the meter value proposition first. So I've worked on, I'm going to let the fine folks from OhmConnect talk about demand response, but I've worked in demand response for almost as long as I've had gray hair, and I have worked with utilities on programs that help to defer capacity expansion and other kinds of things. We think that's cart before the horse. I work with the Peak Load Management Alliance, which is a group of utilities and vendors on demand response, DER integration, and related issues. So I run their DER integration interest group. And there's certainly interest from utilities in this, and we've got proposals that utilities have said they would co-fund for EPIC money and DOE money and the rest, because they're very interested in tracking this. But, with a spreadsheet I can project out how much this will be. It's a lot. It's a lot. The question is, how quickly can you get customers to go for it? Because the value proposition behind the meter is very compelling. The value proposition of behind the meter plus whatever you might get in what market is more questionable, right? I mean, that's when I moderate panels, especially with battery folks, I tell them I'm going to tase the first person who says value stacking, because we're not talking about sort of reading a GTM article. We're talking about going into buildings and changing how they do stuff. So it has to make sense for them, regardless of whether the utility is suddenly going to have or cancel a demand response program, whether the price will or won't be what we think it is in the wholesale market, and so forth. We have to be able to show with filed tariffs that don't change for years what the savings are likely to be behind the meter for the customer.
One more question?
Yeah, one more question. Yes.
How geographically robust is your model?
No idea.
You were talking about California, maybe other places?
Yeah.
Now I can see Mill Valley and Sacramento will have rather different.
Yeah. So
what about Minneapolis?
Yeah. So I mean, the control algorithms we've put out there are very robust. The forecasting models that feed them probably need tuning by region. So again, I've worked in every region of the country for many years, but this product is starting in California because half the solar market in the whole country is in California. We're going to make it work where there's great sun and high demand charges, or it's not going to work anywhere else. So the big juicy market is California, so that's where we're starting. I like big juicy markets. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John. And while Elissa's getting set up, a couple things I forgot to do at the beginning. It was so good to thank the DOE. I just want to thank our hosts, Google. They're really fantastic. Gave us a ton of pizza, so I think eat it. I'll also get some to-go containers, so you can take it for yourself, or also even better, take some and hand it out to somebody who's hungry on the street. And then, is anybody hiring I know Michael's got a couple positions. So we have a jobs board, thecleanweb.org/jobs. Lots of jobs there. So Michael, if you want to just say real quickly.
Yeah, so hiring somebody for integration of NLP, natural language processing, and another one on battery design.
Anybody else? Just go this way.
Oh, yeah.
Going.
Here.
John.
Yeah, we're hiring a product manager for this product, and we're hiring at least one more badass developer, full stack, everything developer.
What about a good ass developer?
Nope.
Nope. All right.
Don't trust him. Don't trust him.
Must be bad. Okay. Well, great. So.
OhmConnect is also hiring
OhmConnect.
product managers, marketing. Yeah, that's what we're hiring for.
Yeah. I think at least one's up on our site right now. The product manager one.
Cool. Awesome.
So Elissa is the senior software engineer, or a senior software engineer at OhmConnect. And she's a civil engineer by university training, both bachelor's and master's, but her focus was on the design of smart devices for grid stability and energy efficiency. And she's also one of the co-organizers of Data Science for Sustainability. That another really great meetup, and they're usually on the first Wednesday of the month, and then we're the second Wednesday of the month. And then What It Takes at Powerhouse is usually the third Wednesday of the month, if things work out as they are supposed to. And yeah, so definitely check them out, and thank you so much.
Of course. This is the first time I'm actually speaking at an event. I normally just help organize them, so it's really exciting. What is that for? Oh, that's very useful. Wonderful. Okay, that's in order. Awesome. So my name is Elissa Goldner. I am a senior software engineer at OhmConnect. I've been there for about 2.5 years. I really help them do a lot of the connecting of the smart home to the smart grid, and a lot of that back-end work connecting your utility to your home, and so we can share your data. So we are a consumer digital company that will allow our users to sell their energy savings back to the grid. As a company, we are collectively focused on making demand response really fun, engaging, easy for our users. Before we go into how OhmConnect is doing that, just kind of wanted to do a quick level set on what OhmConnect is, what demand response is, and why we need it. So here I just have a snapshot of how much power we needed in 2012. As you can see that in the morning when people wake up, you start making your coffee, getting ready for work, you start to use a little bit of energy, we get to see a lull in the afternoon, and again a spike at the end of the night when people are coming home from work, coming home from school, cooking dinner, doing chores, whatever they're doing with their electricity. It's not what I meant to do. There we go. Then come 2013, we start seeing our first, California at least, our first available large-scale grid solar arrays being connected to the grid. So what we're seeing here is, pardon the light yellow lines, I realized the yellow was not the best choice, too late, but I promise you the lines get darker, so bear with me for a second. So the darker yellow line here is just showing what happens when we put a little bit of solar onto the grid. We start to see a little bit of a leveling out, especially in the afternoon. We're seeing the amount that we're demanding from traditional power plants is going down. That's, again, not what I meant to do. Cool. And as we keep going, as more solar keeps coming online in 2014, 2015, 2016, we keep seeing this trend going further and further and further. And if anyone in the energy industry has seen this little talk before where I'm going with this, we're seeing what we call in the energy industry a duck curve. We see, this is the beautiful picture of the duck. So we see basically when solar is coming online, we're seeing a drop in the middle of the day, that's the belly of the duck, and then at the end of the day, we're seeing a big quick ramp of the neck. The head is the peak, and then what we call the bill of the duck is where we're having some wind energy come back online and level out that curve again. And this graph is actually, so those were kind of just figurative fake power plants, fake days in 2012, 2013. This is actually a real graph from the California ISO, October 26, 2017. If anyone remembers last October in the Bay Area, we were at the tail end of a heat wave. So this peak demand we see here is probably a little bit higher than the average demand we normally see in California, but that's what it was. And here you can see the duck curve in the lie. This is actually something we're seeing in our real energy data. You see, is this even, can you see that? Okay, we have the belly right there, the neck ramping up, the peak at the top. And this is actually really exciting. We're taking a lot of dirty power plants off of the grid and replacing them with clean electricity. And it's just presenting us with some new challenges, different challenges that we have to face. So this green line here is the net demand. Didn't go over that. That's just the actual demand minus anything that the renewables produce. So that's basically what we're getting from traditional power sources. And demand response is something that can be used to help offset these really extreme conditions. Traditionally, it's used to really offset the peak demand. Just think of it if you're ever flying on an airline and they overbook a flight, they start to offer some incentives, some more money if you would take a later flight to free up some seats. That's what peak demand response really is. But we're also finding that we can use demand response to help offset some of these other areas of the duck curve, whether it's the ramping up kind of in the early evening, or even in the curtailment area at the bottom where we're having a lot of solar penetration. In fact, in Arizona, they are actually pilot testing some programs that they're paying residential customers to use energy in the middle of the day so they do not have to curtail that solar. Let me see, what else do I want to say here? Oh, and nationally, there's actually a lot of, there's a few policy and regulatory tailwinds that are favoring DR. FERC order, I always forget the number, 745, which was upheld by the Supreme Court in 2016, said that demand response providers must be compensated for reducing electricity load at the same amount as if they were generating that electricity for the grid. And that's really awesome because what it does is tell demand response providers that there's a source of revenue, a steady source of revenue that will be there besides on just those really, really hot days in the summer. So, enter OhmConnect. Before OhmConnect, I will have to admit, I've studied energy relations for a long time. I have 2 degrees in it. I didn't know if I really believed in residential demand response because how can you get so many people to do the same thing and how do you get so many people to care? And that's what I was really, really excited about with OhmConnect. PG&E doesn't really care if I go home at 6 o'clock and don't use power. If I shut my lights off, I'm in the kilowatt hour range of energy that I'm using in 1 hour, not the megawatt hour range. So there are these existing energy wholesale markets that for years, commercial and industrial loads have been able to bid into these markets, get paid or they get paid for being available to reduce their energy during times, and they get paid also if they actually get called on to reduce them during those times. So OhmConnect was just trying to see how can we get residential customers a big piece of that pie. What we're doing is aggregating residential customers together into bigger resources, bidding them into this wholesale market, and passing the payments that we get from this market back on to our users. And traditionally, yes, demand response programs have existed before for residential customers, but they were traditionally operated by utility programs that were very hard to see engagement. We weren't seeing that much. Residential customers just weren't very don't even know what's going on with some of these programs. So OhmConnect was trying to argue that if you allowed third parties into the space by the sharing of data, we can see some more efficiency coming to the system just through sheer market competition. So that's what OhmConnect was trying to do by coming into this market and giving residential customers a way that we can make demand response easy, rewarding, and fun. And the way we've done that is kind of introducing this very simple core loop. We have a central strategy of offering our customers value without them having to invest in expensive hardware or solar. I personally live in an apartment in San Francisco, so that I rent. I don't have the opportunity to add solar panels to my roof. It's just not in the cards, especially with the student loans I have to pay off. But anyway, so yeah, we have a way that all you really need to do is have a smart meter to participate with OhmConnect. We are the ones that monitor the energy markets. We alert our customers if there's a spike in the price for energy, or If our users reduce their energy, we just measure that reduction and we pay them for what they've saved. So let's just take a second to talk about the data. I found out really quickly when I got into this company that I'm considered what they like to call a data nerd. I love to look at data. I love to monitor the energy markets. I love to see how I can help my users save energy in different ways. But that's not something that all our users really want to do. They don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of things. So we've tried to make it really, really simple by just telling them some very basic things. They would tell them how much they're predicted to use, which is actually calculated in a standard formula that the state of California tells us how to calculate that. Then we give them actually what the energy that they were predicted to use, the energy that they actually use, and then show them how many points they earn from that. And points, so that's 691 points, that's $6.91. So that person, this is actually our CTO, his name is Kadir. He got almost $7 in just one single event. Which is really, really awesome for him. Yes, so then also we tried to make it really, really easy to succeed. I also learned from my experience at OhmConnect that I'm an environmentalist nerd. I really love to do things that help the grid. Like, I'm part of OhmConnect because demand response is cool and I want to help the grid be more stable. Not all of our users really care that much about that. So what we've done is make it really, really easy for them to succeed. This is actually one of the parts that I've been really involved in, is helping our users automate their reductions. So by connecting smart plugs and smart thermostats to our site, we actually just shut them off when there's an event, and we'll turn them back on for you when you're gone. I personally have hooked my whole apartment up with these smart plugs and a smart thermostat, which I like to tell people who I'm trying to convince to try OhmConnect that I get paid to be at happy hour sometimes, which is really awesome. So we really tried to give our users this kind of set it and forget it pathway, if that's what they are, if that's what they want to do. And we tried to make our rewards really enticing. We've started to offer our streak bonuses, which provide our users with a growing bonus for each consecutive hour they reduce. If our user goes over forecast, or if they opt out of an event, they lose their streak. So that's kind of convincing them to stay in each event and keep going. Then we also offer our status level bonuses that give rewards for deep and consistent reductions over time. So to get to gold, you need to be able to reduce over the past 20 events that you have 20% of your baseline load. To get to platinum, which you get even higher bonuses, you have to reduce up to 40% consistently from your baseline load. And one of the awesome things that I'm really excited about is our Mega Summer, and I promise you I'm not in the marketing team. This is just really, really cool. OhmConnect is committed to supplying the grid with 110 megawatts this summer in demand response, and in order to get our users really excited about that aspect, we're doing a prize giveaway every single week at our Mega Summer Live. As you can see, this is a little outdated. Last weekend we gave away a Disney vacation. This week on Sunday, if you qualify for one of these events, you are in a drawing to win an extended weekend to Iceland.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And then at the end of the summer, so far, this is my mother's house actually. She is qualified on one event. If she gets all three, she's entered into a drawing to win 100K at the end of the summer. She just doesn't know that she's not allowed to win it because I'm holder of her account. But she's super excited about that. And we really thought OhmHours, like I said, I was a really big believer in residential demand response until I saw what OhmConnect was doing. We didn't really know if our users would see these events as something they want to participate in or something that was a little bit of an inconvenience. And the feedback we've been getting has been really, really awesome. One of my favorite things I saw was a woman wrote into us to tell us that OhmHours had saved her marriage because they were able, her and her husband had candlelight dinners and were able to talk about things that were going on in their marriage and just like have a set time to unplug. We've also had heard stories about parents teaching their children card games or board games that they're normally not interested in because there's always the option of TV. Me and my roommate personally are just like that second. We're both in the tech world. We just love that ability to unplug, walk my dog, who we call our son, things like that. So it's a great place for our users, or a great time for our users to just kind of unplug, take a second, and everyone has their own reasons for loving OhmHours, and the response we're getting is really, really exciting. So I know I've talked about these mysterious ohm hours. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a data look at what they actually look like. So this beautiful smooth curve is just the energy forecast that I was talking about before. Like I said, it's the standard formula that California tells us to use, and it's just based on what you've used in the past. So if we have an event on a Monday, what we're doing is looking at the past 10 weekdays you've had, averaging your usage together and getting what your usage is for each hour. So when we actually get the user's data in, that's when we see the blue line. The blue line should match the gray as closely, pretty well. We are seeing, one of the awesome things that we are able to do, since we're collecting so much data on residential usage, we're going to be able to verify the calculation that California has been telling us to use is actually valid for residential customers, and we're offering our guidance on how, if it is valid or if we should change it at all. But this is what happens when we see the user actual load come in. So then when we're trying to see what an ohm hour actually does, if we call the event from 6 to 7 o'clock, we see this, we want to see this reduction in the user's curve. And this green area is what we're actually paying our users for. That's the reduction that we're able to sell back into the grid.
Is this from one customer, or is this an aggregate, or is this just a fictional customer?
This is a fictional customer, but I will show you an aggregate real customer soon.
Okay.
So yes, that's a great segue of where are we now. Oh, not the right button. So this slide is also 1 week out of date. We have over 400,000 signups now. 8,500 new virtual generators that we added to the California energy supply. We have 259 new virtual power plants in the energy market. And what I like to see is we've actually offset for, and this is not including this current summer yet, but we've offset for 25 megawatt power plants from being called on to be on the grid in 2017 and before. And also a really awesome number to see is we paid out $4 million to our users over the past 4 years, and we're just hoping to see that number go up. And then these are actually aggregate for our customers. These are aggregate for, I think, 1 flap each, so it's a couple thousand users. And we're actually seeing that theoretical drop in our data. And as someone, I'm not technically a data scientist, I call myself a data-driven engineer, but this is really exciting to me because we kind of had a hypothesis, we tested it, and we saw what we're getting. And we're seeing real reductions. We're seeing people actually joining together and reduce their energy all at once. So super exciting. And if you want to learn more, you can visit OhmConnect.com, but also we're a startup and referral growing stage, so if you want to use my referral link, I get $20, you get 10, and a smart plug, so.
Can you go back to that graph?
Hello?
Yeah. Oh, but first, yay! Take his question now.
Yeah, so what are you calling a virtual power plant?
We are the virtual, or in the 259.
Yeah, how do you know there's 259?
Those are our resources that we've created in the market. So we basically have to say so there's the demand response registration system, it's called DRRS. We have to first register a location, which is a location is equivalent to 1 user. They call it a location because normally that would be 1 commercial or industrial facility. Then they get registered once you have the location accepted as like, yes, this person can participate in demand response, they're registered to a resource, which can be a collection of locations. In the past, before OhmConnect, we were the first one to ever put more than 1 location into a resource, just because we were DRS had never seen that flood of users as we had introduced to it. And then those resources get registered to our particular contract or area where we're bidding into.
How do you set the baseline for users?
It's calculated, that's the standard formula that I was talking about that California tells us. So we call it 10 and 10. So what it does, they separate out your weekday usage and your weekend usage. So if you have an event on a Saturday, they will look at your past 10 Saturday and Sunday and or holiday days and take your average of your usage for that hour. If it's a weekday, they look at your past 10 weekdays that were not a holiday. You also don't include event days into your baseline. Ready?
Oh, Daniel.
So, given that, and given the possible feedback that you might actually change the formula which the state gives you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ultimately successful, aren't you basically eliminating your market? Because if everybody's doing this, then all of a sudden you don't get paid to do it because that's the baseline, right?
No, the base.
Okay.
So event days are not allowed to be calculated into the baseline.
Gotcha.
So they don't help. And also, right now, it's not really. I guess changing the formula is the wrong way to describe it. They've been discussing the methodology of how they calculate it. So one of the ones that they're looking at is maybe for residential customers is 10 days too far back, because what were you doing 2 weeks ago? Were you on vacation? Is it completely different from what you're doing 2 weeks from now? So 10 days might be too long. They're looking at 5 and 5. They're looking at kind of like the control group type of pathway. And also OhmConnect is not the only one in this like working group that they're discussing. I think the working group is from the California Energy Commission is the one who's actually organizing these working groups, because they're the ones who kind of set the legislation of like how it all should work. And it's also a lot of whether it's I think eMotorWorks shows up to some of these working groups, other demand responsive providers, sometimes solar installers, because it's all just kind of like how they're figuring out how to deal with all this like masses of data with smart meters.
So, are the peak events or these Ohm hours called like across the PG&E market, across CAISO? Is it split? So like East Bay PG&E is different from SF?
So we have to group our users into SLAPs, what means sublap. So that's basically your substation that's providing you power. So in San Francisco, PGSF is one sublap. Inside that sublap, we have created, I think right now we might have 4 or 5 virtual power plants within that sublap. But then the areas typically get called on by that. By those types of regions, but you do see so San Francisco is kind of on its own little island or peninsula or whatever we want to call this little mitten that we're in. But a lot of the kind of like Central California, where the weather conditions can be more similar, they might get called on the same. It's really actually to do with kind of when they do the whole optimization of what energy needs they need where and what constraints they have on the grid. That's where all the different pricing points come out of, and that's where you see different spikes in kind of the local energy markets.
I think it's interesting that I signed up, and so I'm the dad in the household, and there's 4 of us, and so now the dad has to convince the 2 teenage daughters, turn off the iPhones, turn off the laptops. You know, mom can't relax in front of the TV between 6 and 7. That's a big deal in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, behavioral science most often says the teenagers go to school and they learn about this and they convince the parents, don't smoke for these reasons,
mm-hmm.
don't drink too much for these reasons, exercise. So are you providing the families with information on how the parents can help the families educate them on why we should be doing this as a family? Or are you thinking about, even though the parent may have signed up for this and connected our PG&E account, maybe there's another way to get to the kids to convince them or to notify them that, hey, you know, mom and dad are doing this,
mm-hmm.
that's great, how can we all get on board?
So they're doing a few things with families. One thing that we're doing that's I think a little bit separate from your specific use case is we're actually working with some PTAs in schools, because I know back in my day when we needed to fundraise for the PTA, they gave us big boxes of candy and told us to go door to door. And now if you hear that, like if parents hear that, they're like, no, I can't let my child do that. It's much different these days, I guess. But anyway, we are offering, like we work with PTAs to say that we can set up your school on a team. We do offer this like team program where you can be part of a donation team. So basically what we're doing is some schools have set it up such that all of their like a user can still keep the bonuses that they get from referrals. So we right now are offering $20 for referral. If anyone signs up, you get your own referral link. You can make a lot of money just by telling other people about OhmConnect. But other than that, the energy savings are actually being donated back to the school. And we have one of those corny big checks, but we've given out checks for over like $10,000 to a school PTA just based on a couple hundred kids going home and telling their parents that they should do this, and also some parents talking amongst themselves. I think we've seen a little bit more success of getting the kids on board and the younger generations, because I've seen, like, we have a video of this one family who offered to do this video for us. Whenever there's an Ohm hour, their kids race around the house to shut off the lights, because it's kind of like they're very competitive brother and sister pair. They just want to know who can get the most and who can make sure, like, if they have all these energy monitoring systems of making sure something's actually off. So I think that's one way that we've been trying to engage it, through the schools, through the PTA. For your situation with your teenage daughters, that's a little bit harder. But we actually are, one thing that we're trying to do, first I do recommend looking at our blog, because I think we have a lot of users with this similar problem that might be already talking about this.
Good, yeah.
But one thing that we're actually trying to do, and this is kind of more on our business development side, is we're trying to find other partners that we're trying to tell you not to use your power for an hour, not all power for an hour. So one thing I was personally trying to be interested in was trying to see if we can set up a partnership with this. Has anyone heard of SoulCycle? I'm a big fan. I love it. I would love to go get out of my house and use SoulCycle's power for an hour. So we're working on to see if there's partnership we can have there, or with a movie company, or a theater, or dinners like that. So we're trying to find more incentives in that direction. But other than that, we can just, I think, more behavioral family activities. I suggest Settlers of Catan. They have one called Power Grid. It's really awesome.
Is gamification of energy consumption a trending? Do you see that with are there other OhmConnects out there that are doing similar?
So far, we haven't seen really one in the residential space. One of the issues that we have been working closely with California Regulatory Commission is kind of how difficult they're making it for third parties to enter this space and become connected. And that, yeah, so it's growing, because also the thing that that kind of helped us get into business was a legislative group called Rule 24. If you go south to San Diego, they call it Rule 32, because they already had a Rule 24. But it basically just says that you're given the permission from the end user, who, if I give permission to my utility because I own that data, to share my data with another party, that they have to provide that data. So that helps us at OhmConnect, because then we can measure your energy reductions, but it also helps solar installers, energy efficient companies. So there's a bunch of people actually kind of on the same overall data transparency trend, but we haven't really seen anyone in the residential demand response market.
There was a blog on this topic, sort of, it said like saving from the bottoms up, which I just read. It's like, so you don't have to turn off everything. So it's like, okay,
right.
If you want to read or whatever, it's like this,
Yeah,
you know, your CFL is going to be like 14 watt hours over the hour, and that's still going to give you your goal.
Right. And they do, OhmConnect does that. They'll tell you, you can turn off these things, you don't have to turn off everything. Which is fun to like click on that and know I turned off that.
I'm also a big fan of pre-charging things. Again, in tech, I often have to work during home hours, so I have a little MiFi device where you can use like the Wi-Fi on your phone if you ever need to just be online for something, or you can like pre-download movies, watch on things like that.
Yeah. So did you do anything with sort of neighborly competitiveness, or I think there was a group called M-Power a while ago that was doing that, where they actually had a miles per gallon for your home, and then you compete with your neighbor to see who can save the most. Is that an effective behavioral change method that you're looking at, or? That's
not something that we're per se looking at, just because there's a bunch of other companies that do that. So I know if you're a PG&E customer, you can actually sign on to your portal, and they have something that's applied by OPower that can show you a rough estimate of kind of like your usage compared to your neighbors. We have been looking into something. One thing that we do offer on our site is a buddy challenge. So if you have a buddy, you get extra rewards if you both reduce, and also you don't get extra rewards if someone drops the ball in the two-pair relationship. So we're kind of trying to go at it through peer pressure. But then we also do have our teams, which I think they can set internal goals for themselves, but we don't have that actual compared to another team yet, just because I think it's a field that's been covered by a lot of other companies in the space right now.
So OhmConnect has been super successful in the demand response auction mechanism, which is a yearly pay-as-bid auction.
Mm-hmm.
So is there like a growing team? It seems like you expose yourself to a lot of like revenue risk by having a once a year kind of revenue auction.
It's not the only thing we're making our revenue off of. We also bid into day-ahead markets just in the California ISO, and then we're integrated in Ontario in Canada and in Texas, so we have a few other sources of revenue. And then our policy, like one thing I was really shocked about at first when I came onto OhmConnect, I was the second engineering hire, really awesome, cool. And then I noticed there was another team that wasn't engineering at a tech company growing faster than mine, and that was our policy team. So our policy team, well, our engineering team has now passed them again. We are at 10 members, they are still at 5. Our policy team has been pretty crucial. They're the ones actually going around the country, figuring out what market we can go into next. Same reasons for why you're working in California. California is very progressive. I'm actually from New York, not from California, and ComEd is just rolling out smart meters to their customers now. They're about, I think, 50 or 60% deployed. They made that decision a year or two ago to go with Silver Spring, now Itron. So there are a few things we need to get into a market, and smart meters are one of them. So that's kind of holding us up in some other areas of the country. Maybe that's one already.
Yeah, so you meant on there it said that like gold was 30% reduction, presumably silver is like 20%. Is that based on the market needs? Is that based on
That's
like
based
that
on your
third?
personal
No,
needs.
the threshold of 30%.
Oh no, so that was actually where that user was at now. When you get to silver, that just means we've gotten everything back from your utility, you're not in a competing demand response program, and you're allowed to participate in our market. So yeah, silver is our kind of base class for a paid user. And then to get to gold, you need a 20% reduction average over your last 20 events. That person was at gold and at a 30% reduction, so they were halfway to getting to platinum. To get to platinum, you need a consistent 40% reduction over your past 20 ohm hours.
Can you add a diamond level?
What?
Can you add a diamond, one above platinum?
I don't know. We've actually seen streaks up to like 103, I think is the highest one I saw, which is like a 400 time X multiplier on the points, and that's, yeah. So
we're at 53.
I think in the streaks is where the money's at.
So CCAs are going to become a huge part of the population in California. Do you see any sort of partnership potential with CCAs who have to procure power themselves, or any sort of like risk, or like how will CCAs affect your business?
So we actually are partnered with a lot of the CCAs in California right now, and we've also brought this issue up to I think the CEC and the CPUC, because basically what we are seeing here is there's a little bit of this gray area, because Rule 24 really only applies to PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E. And it kind of is a loophole for like small municipalities like LA Department of Water and Power and SMUD down there. Smaller. And then also the CCAs. So right now we do have a working partnership with a lot of the CCAs. They do have to be in their own virtual power plant in the market, so that's why we have a few in PGSF. We have a few virtual power plants, and then it is something ongoing that we're working with the CPUC about the potential risk for them to kind of, well, not mess up, but like it's just another factor into the optimization or whatever the calculations that probably wasn't considered before. So yeah. Right.
So like with PG&E shifting all of its residential customers to time of use rates, and a lot of people like doing load shifting, so doing their laundry in the evenings or something to build up their average. Do you see that as a risk to people, like to people's earnings, and all of a sudden they're now being charged more because they're using a higher price rate in the evenings, and now suddenly they're, is that going to be a negative effect for OhmConnect if people do that? And are you going to do anything to sort of warn people about that?
So I'm going to wear my Elissa hat and not my OhmConnect hat for a second.
Yeah.
But I actually personally, that's not something we've actually really looked into. From my experience with time of use rate planning, I would just be more excited that residential customers be more aware of their energy use. I think that education that they're going to be charged more at different times of the day will actually help us, because a lot of the problems we face with our users is they've never thought about their energy ever until maybe they moved to a new place and forgot to call their power company, and like a half hour or a couple days later they got shut down with all their power because they didn't tell everyone they moved in. So yeah, I think that would actually be probably a good thing. Since our events are sporadic and based on kind of grid needs, I think it's just another tool that we need to help with grid stability of kind of keeping people price aware of what's going on. So yeah, we actually, as OhmConnect, we have not modeled that out or seen that as a threat, but also as an engineer, an energy nerd engineer, I don't know if that would be, I see that more as a positive than a negative.
When you are connecting customers, you are asking for PG&E password and you're collecting personal data. How secure is your system?
So we don't do that anymore, but that was an interim solution when...
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question was, OhmConnect used to collect credentials, so in order to sign up for our site, we would ask for your credentials for your PG&E account in order to get your data. We do not do that anymore. We do not have any residential or residual passwords or anything like that. They were encrypted, they were stored very safely. That was for our first couple thousand users, and that's it. Now what's happened, and this is something that we've been working with a lot of other companies in the area to implement what they call the click-through solution. So right now, if you go, any of the major California utilities, if you want to share your data with a third party, you can initiate it from the third party site or from the utility site. And it's basically an OAuth solution. So instead of logging in on my site and us having to log in for you, grab your data and do other things, you go to PG&E, you log in, say, yes, I agree to give OhmConnect my data. We give them a handshake, and then they give us access tokens to get your data now. What do I do with your data?
What is your security system? What are your policies? What are regulations? What are you allowed to do with my data?
I'm allowed to use your data to measure your energy reductions. And that's really what we're using it for.
Is there any regulations that you can share this data with anyone without my permission? What is your security?
So that's actually all detailed in Rule 24. So the same legislation that says that if you give permission to your utility to share your data with OhmConnect, that we are the only people that have that permission to use your data. So we are not allowed to really give it out, and even in sometimes when we partner with another company on a certain contract or a certain thing, we have to work out with the utility the legalities of sharing data or who's allowed to calculate what. So when you share their data with us, you're only sharing your data with OhmConnect.
Do you guys tell your customers how much carbon emissions you're saving? Because you say that it's very true. We're not very conscious about our electricity, but there's a lot of consciousness about CO2 emissions. Do you guys share that at all, or?
So we do once in a while. We also have a blog that we try to publish that data on, but we do have a few new product managers who came into our company with that same statement saying, I don't know what this means. So I think in the coming months we are going to be releasing some features that kind of do a little bit more of the aggregate kind of group reduction, like, okay, everyone in San Francisco turned off their lights today from 6 to 7. What happened? How did it do? Did we save? Did that power plant, the dirty power plant, turn on? Or did we mess up somehow? So we're going to start sharing that data very, very soon.
I just want to clarify my understanding of how the 4 million got based community. You said earlier that the Supreme Court, honored a certain rule saying that if you cut back your usage during that demand time, that they would pay you the equivalent of you not using energy. And so does the government or PG&E or whoever pay OhmConnect and you guys forward that money to the users?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what happens. So we were bidding into a market that has it should be around the same prices as you would to generate energy. Of course, the really awesome thing that OhmConnect can do is come into this market and to tell my users that there's a demand response event coming. It's a text message and an email. So while our startup has some startup costs and it does cost money to pay my salary, it is fairly low cost to send out an event. And we're coming into this market and being compared to commercial industrial loads that will have some startup costs and shutdown costs. So whether it is a refrigeration plant that you're shutting off some refrigerators, it's the amount of power or amount of effort it takes to actually shut things down and then ramp things back up at a certain time. So we're able to come in, but yeah, it's just an open market of who can do it that much for cheaper.
Are there any effects from usage increasing around
Not what we're seeing. So actually, fast forward a couple more years, what they actually, and this is a technical term I'm going to use, they want to see some load shimmying. So not only being paid to reduce energy, but also you see in the belly of the duck being paid to actually use more energy. So it's really just about getting the demand to meet the supply. Now that we are seeing different grid services being needed and things like that, as we were just discussing before. So we haven't really seen that because we're not really seeing much of a pre-spike when we see the decreases. We do actually encourage our users to, like, for example, I had an event yesterday, I think from 7 to 8. So on Monday night, I ran my dishwasher from 7 to 8. So just to try to gamify it a little bit more.
Do you think it would be plausible to add like one of your smart, like to turn something on during the belly, so when people like might be away at work, like that would be when something gets charged or like.
So that's actually not something that California is doing right now. I think they're getting to that, but actually I think that's exactly what they're piloting in Arizona right now. Is basically what loads, because they also really don't want, like, you can if you have a smart plug on a fan and just have your fan turn on when you're not home to get paid, but like, is that really doing it? That's not really the most benefit that you're getting. You get more benefit when you're charging cars, charging batteries, running dishwasher loads. So I think I would probably see an Arizona market at least where they're being paid to not hit that curtailment point. I think maybe like a smart dishwasher or smart washing machine would probably be really, really helpful there.
So I used to be at a startup that was also in the gamification thing, only in fitness, not in energy. And we actually had, the first couple of weeks, you had the novelty factor of, oh, this is gamified, this is really awesome, all that sort of thing. And then there was a giant like gulf, and then a habit got formed. And what happened in the gulf was how you determined like your long-term conversion rate. What strategies are you using to like bridge that gulf once the novelty factor kind of wears off?
Two things. We're actually really pushing our smart devices. So we also got some government funding a couple years ago to, one thing that we were testing is the impact of smart device penetration on demand response. So we were given a lot of money to just throw smart devices at California users, which was really super fun as a person building out that stuff. But that's one of the ways that we've seen a much higher retention rate over time, especially with consistent performance with our users that have connected devices. And then also what we're doing is where we saw the streaks and the tier levels come into play. And I think this is also where we're trying to use a community, like our blog and our forum, to kind of foster a community. Because when we had a few users in the winter months kind of complaining that their payments have gotten so low, why is this worth it? And this one user posted this really awesome article just kind of saying, like, no, winter is when you save, you get your streak. So by the time the good payments come in the summer, you're at like 100x bonus. And that's, so we've gotten some community engagement to help people through those lulls. But yeah, so it's kind of our streaks, our tier bonuses, things like that, and then also connected devices that we're using.
Do you see any evidence that consumers, just because they're being more energy conscious in general, are consuming less power even outside of the events?
We haven't really seen that evidence, and that's because I don't really think all my customers are really interested in just saving power. That's what I really, like, that was my gut assumption, is that's why people would want to get involved in OhmConnect, but that's also why my skepticism about residential demand response were always there. What OhmConnect has really been able to do is, some people really love gamifying anything. Those are people who are the ones getting involved. A lot of people we've seen a large intake of our user base from penny hoarder, people trying to save money, people trying to make some extra cash. So I think that's actually a larger base too. And then you also just kind of have, like, sometimes it's like your coupon clippers and your deal savers, sometimes your competitive people, but we're seeing a lot reasons than just energy consciousness for getting into OhmConnect. So we really haven't seen too much of a general load decrease.
One more question.
Is there any more?
Anybody? Yes? Oh, one in the back.
Is smart plug something you plug into the outlet, like for your apartment, or?
Funny you ask. It's in this box. Yeah, so smart plug is just something, so the word smart really just means internet connected. So what it is, this one is, this is a TP-Link. It's in a box because we're going to give it away. But this one has energy monitoring on it, so not all of them do that. This one is a little bit fancier if you want to actually see how much load your device is actually grabbing. But what it really only is, it's a Wi-Fi connected on-off switch to your outlet. So I have one of these on my entertainment system, one of these on my refrigerators. What it won't do is say you had a plug-in air conditioner, like a wall unit. It will just turn it's a supply to power on or off. So what you need to do with an AC unit is have it plugged in with the power flowing and then press a button. So we can't control that yet, but this will just kind of cut the power to anything.
All right. Thank you, Elissa. All right. So we've got half an hour before they kick us out. So we get more food, and also she's got gifts for us. Well, she's got prizes and not gifts. Or the proper legal languages. So, for people here who want to win, if not, if you can, you should have already signed up for OhmConnect. Pay your own power bill.
So we have a Honeywell Lyric. I think this costs about $200. I like the Honeywell Lyric for if you don't have a C-wire, so if you don't have a wire that provides power to a thermostat, because most dumb thermostats are very, very low power, operate on batteries. The batteries will last a really, really long time. This one actually does have a place for batteries. In my apartment in San Francisco, I only have to change the batteries once every 6 months, which is pretty awesome for a Wi-Fi connected device. So that's that. The ecobee 3 Lite is really awesome because it works with the Apple HomeKit, it works with Amazon Alexa, it works with SmartThings and IFT. So you can use this to say, hey Alexa, turn on my heat. And then these things wrapped in plastic are the TP-Link smart plugs. These are the H110 models, so you can monitor your energy use.
Drum roll. Instead of bubble, we have drum roll. Does anybody know, are these thermostats back on the Energy Star rating? So, smart programmable thermostats were Energy Star rated and got all this money, but very similar to in commercial buildings, they had these really terrible interfaces and all these buttons, and so nobody could figure them out. They'd have 7 days and 3 or 4 zones for each day, and so nobody could program them, so they would just turn off the actual programmable part and just go up and down. They're $100 thermostats, and so Energy Star removed the rating, but I think with the Nest they actually came back because it was providing savings again. So hopefully.
Anything Wi-Fi connected?
Okay.
Yeah, I think the reason why they lost their Energy Star rating was for the utility programs and not the actual, it's just the behavior of the thermostat. So the reason why Nest got it back is because they have their own demand response program. So they're doing directly control it.
Oh, we can use your badge, we can put these in there. And everybody, even if you don't win here, you still get an OhmConnect sticker. Everybody gets an OhmConnect sticker.
should we just let someone choose if they want to come up?
Sure, why not?
So yeah, we'll put these two together. You have the option just in case you don't have, or you can hook these up to rented apartments, but there's definitely different concerns there. Okay, so first winner, 393207.
Woo!
Ah, there we go.
Look at that. Don't have to fight with your daughters anymore.
Yeah, it's really cool because what I did to my roommate last year was attach a smart plug to his entertainment system, and on April Fool's Day I sat outside the door just turning it on and off. And he was going crazy.
Really use this one.
Do you want to take both of them?
Thank you.
This
There's
is
more
fun.
people.
Okay. Good Samaritan. Okay, second winner, 393181.
All right. So with these smart plugs, one of the best tips I got was actually from Elissa at another meetup. So put that on our refrigerator.
Yeah, I was wondering.
And so that little cooling load, if it came on, could knock us out because we were in a small house, and so that one big draw could knock us out of our savings. So
Yeah, and if these are refrigerator closed during that hour, not gonna lie, I normally don't. I like to snack, so if you keep it closed, you can go up to 4 hours without losing 1 or 2 degree, or I think it's 1 degree of temperature in there. So you really aren't damaging your food in there. Or I found it to be okay. So
you can also increase your thermal load by putting in jugs of water or ice. Do that too. I'm also an energy and environmental learner.
I know. That's why we get along.
Yeah.
Okay, next winner. And we have 2 smart thermostats. I'm pretty sure these are retail value about $200 each, so pretty fancy. 393195. We have a 95. Okay.
Maybe they're left. Or maybe it's one of these. I'm a winner.
There's 6 right there. Okay. 393202.
Woo!
Oh my God.
What did you say the difference was?
This one is Amazon Alexa enabled, HomeKit enabled, and SmartThings enabled, and IFT. This guy has its own app, but I like it for a small San Francisco apartment. It doesn't, you can have a power hookup or you can run it on batteries. This one doesnn't have a battery slot. C-wire.
All right, the last one.
393182. There you go. This is the one I have for my apartment.
Thank you all for playing, for coming. Stay around, eat more pizza and salad, ask more questions, meet each other. Everyone meet somebody they haven't met yet. That's the final activity. All right, thanks. Oh, does anybody want a reusable shopping bag? The last gift. No takers on the reusable shopping bag? Stickers? All right. It's a pretty good sticker.
Take a sticker.
All right.
Glad I didn't get the thermostat. My apartment doesn't actually have a thermostat.
Yeah. Our house doesn't.
We just have 2 electric heaters in the corner.
Yeah. One, like a little gas, in-room gas furnace in our living room, and then a small electric radiator in the bedroom.
Take out your yard.
Yeah.
Like geothermal.
That would be so intensely expensive. What's crazy though is like taking my FLIR. So if so imagine a rectangle, like it's in this, it's in the southeast corner.
Ready for a rematch?
And then when it's
She gave
going,
a shout out to the Power Grid game.
you can see like maybe a little longer than like a white streak.
Yeah, sometimes they have like mega ohm hours, I guess, that are like 2 or 3 hours long.
And feel like the heat coming down on your face.
Yeah.
We spent like 4 hours doing it, like recirculating.
Have you used OhmConnect?
No. Looking at it,
It's pretty fun.
Try it out. I did it for a while, and then the last place I lived in, I didn't pay the bill.
It's a small 1-bedroom.
Yeah, I just moved in with my girlfriend and I haven't
100-plus-year-old house and everything.
taken over the account yet.
When it was built for plumbing or electricity.
Yeah, probably it's pretty easy. I mean, once you get it's funny hearing like the backstory of like why I got a bunch of smart plugs to do.
Did they just like appear?
Well, no, I mean they like somehow emailed us or whatever with the offer. Like you can get 2 free smart plugs. You probably have to do something on the website.
It must be, but the thing is, it's like
yeah, and then they actually sent me 2 extra ones. I think they just didn't know. They like messed up the place. Yeah. So I got 4 free smart plugs.
I mean, so if you well, it's like if you're turning
that's the only thing I've used it on actually. But that's the one.
You basically need to take the floor. Like if I can see the I can't.
I'll pay your bill. You need a referral link.
Yeah, please. If you like,
or you can decide.
I think I just signed up with that.
Oh, you already signed up? She got it. She earned it.
Roddy, I signed up